Hello everyone. Today is Lokmanya Balgangadhar Tilak's Jayanti. I am proud and extremely blessed to have been born in Lokmanya Tilak's family. As a young woman, I couldn't understand the depth and the richness of Lokmanya Tilak's legacy until I started working in the Kesari Maratha Trust and various other social trusts. Though I read various books and articles on him, I am still trying to comprehend the depth of Tilak's thoughts. Lokmanya Tilak was a multifaceted personality, known as a spokesman of Swarajya, a visionary of nationalism, a great researcher, a mathematician, an astromathematician, and a Sanskrit Pandit, historian, and an editor. Mahatma Gandhi also declared him a maker of modern India. Lokmanya Tilak created a spirit of self-respect and nationalism within each Indian. Not only did he create a spirit of nationalism, but he united people from all the provinces, religions, languages, various cultures, castes and creeds to form a single nation. Lokmanya Tilak was the founder of Swarajya and worked relentlessly for the betterment of the working class. He had a vision of nourished and developed India, and to fulfill his vision of obtaining Swarajya and called out the workers to improve their status. Today, I would like to tell you about how he made people aware of the economic plunder which was taking place in India. There was no participation of common people in the independence struggle of 1857. Therefore, Lokmanya knew that the idea of Swarajya would not be possible unless the common man becomes aware of nationalism, a nation. Tilak started educating people by using speeches, fairs, music and kirtans. Along with Ganesh Utsav, Tilak started two other movements like famine code and ban of alcohol. Consequently, farmers, workers, non-Brahmin societies started accepting the leadership of Lokmanya. Through Ganesh Utsav and Shiva Jayanti, people comprehended Lokmanya Tilak's fourfold program, namely Swarajya, Swadeshi, boycott and national education. Tilak knew that the India's economy was 90% dependent on agriculture. Tilak's philosophy was based on modernity, reality and practicality. He commented on agricultural issues like sugar factories, yarn industries, weavers and also tried to create industrial sector by creating indigenous banks, indigenous shops, skill development, and he also tried to improve cooperative principles as well. Tilak was the first to introduce communism and Karl Marx theory in India through his writings in the Maratha newspaper dated May 1, 1881. The public Ganesh Utsav started by Lokmanya Tilak also expanded in Mumbai. A large number of workers used to participate in Ganesh Utsav. Tilak himself used to visit Ganesh Utsav mandals. Thousands of people used to gather at his meetings in Mumbai to listen to Tilak's thoughts. After the partition of Bengal, Tilak's indigenous and boycott principles received a huge response from the general public and the workers. The threat of Tilak's growing popularity was noticed by the English governor who demanded that the viceroy shall banish Tilak. Before sentencing of Lokmanya Tilak, it was evident to what extent the government was terrified of Tilak's popularity. News of Tilak's deportation spread quickly in India. Workers spontaneously called a 6-day strike and staged protest in Mumbai. 2 lakh workers were also on strike for 6 days as punishment for 6 years. Lenin took note of the strike, but after a peaceful strike and protest, the police gave a violent turn to it. The army was called in, 15 people were killed and 38 were injured in the shooting. Manchester Guardian had said, considering the nature of the punishment meted out to Mr. Tilak, the government had decided to do anything to get him out of the way. This incident will be recorded in the history of India. Prior to 1918, there was not a single worker union in India that looked after the welfare of the workers. The International Trade Union Confederation was formed in 1919. Prior to this, along with other trade unions, the Indian Labour League and the Hind Mazdoor Sangh defended the welfare of mills, factories, post, western and central railway workers in the Mumbai area. The office of Hindu Mazdoor Sangh was at the Lady Jamshedji Road, Dadar. The president of the league was Barrister Pawar and the secretary was S.V. Gowde. Dr. D.D. Sathe and Dr. M.B. Velkar were all the Indian committee of the Labour League. Dr. Sathe and Velkar were very popular in the working class at the time as co-workers of Lokmanya and activists of Ganesh Utsav and Shiva Jayanti celebrations. He had gone to work in a labour camp during the plague epidemic in Mumbai. In 1890, the municipal cleaning workers in Mumbai stopped their work. At that time, Kesari stood tall in their favour. In 1903, Kesari had strongly opposed the planter labour bill brought against the tea plantation workers. In 1903, Kesari had strongly opposed the planter labour bill brought against the tea plantation workers. In 1907, Tilak said, "Labour movements are not national but social and economic. But the national development and the labour movement cannot be divided. If Hindustan gets the right of Swarajya by excluding the Hindi Mazdoor Sangh from the national movement, then bureaucracy of British will go and black bureaucracy will be obtained and it will not be Swarajya." In fact, in 1906, Lokmanya Tilak first suggested in the public meeting that a strong union of Indian workers should be formed to fight against the government for the rights of the workers. Tilak's policy of opposing the Indian labour movement against the bureaucracy was one of the ways to achieve Swarajya. And so, Lala Lajpat Rai made the following remarks about Lokmanya Tilak. Tilak's return to India might be said as a nationalist labour leader. Lokmanya Tilak returned to India in 1914 after being imprisoned in Mandalay and then re-established the Swarajya movement by forming the Indian Home Rule League or the Hindi Swaraj Sangh. The British Parliament decided to send a delegation to London as well as a delegation from the Indian Labour League to demand the Home Rule League. The Hind Mazdoor Sangh decided in a meeting of its executive board on 16 July 1919 that the plight of Hindi workers should be reduced to 8 hours instead of 12 hours, 1 day a week and a paid leave on festive days, etc. The grievance of the Hindi workers should be successfully presented to the British Parliament by the delegates, and for this, the British Labour Party should be requested to bring satisfactory amendments to the law on the principle of equality in respect of labour and capital. Lokmanya Tilak and Dr. Velkar gave lectures at the meeting held in Edinburgh, Scotland by Students' Union, Indian Association and Trade Union Congress. The meeting was attended by hundreds of English workers. The International Labour Organization held a meeting in London to accumulate the workers from the United States and England. Indian workers should also join the international organization in order to establish workers' rights. Therefore, Lokmanya Tilak and Dr. Velkar were specially invited. Both were seated on the platform on the day of the meeting and addressed the gathering. Tilak said, "The labour movement in India is still in the infancy. It takes a place in a grand manner in all the countries. It will be seen that the labour movement here will be commanded and also cooperate with the world organization." In London on 30th September 1919, the railway workers went on strike on behalf of the International Union. Many labour meetings were held at the Royal Albert Hall and the Tower Hill. Lokmanya Tilak and Dr. Velkar attended the meeting. A photo of him has been published in London's Daily Mail newspaper. Lokmanya Tilak also listened to the grievances of Hindi workers before the parliamentary committee appointed by the British government to respond to the demands of Hindi Swaraj Sangh and Hindi Mazdoor Sangh. The Indian Labour League delegation returned home after receiving assurance from the committee about the demands of 8 working hours a day, 1 a day week paid leave, and paid holiday for various religion festivals, etc. On his return to Mumbai, Tilak was felicitated by the Workers' Union on November 29, 1919, in the grand courtyard of Elphinstone Mill. According to the report of Lokasangra Daily, a community of 20 to 25,000 people had gathered at the meeting. It was also decided at this meeting and a separate newspaper should be issued for the workers, and it was decided that Kesari should print the articles about the workers till its publication. Responding to the award, Tilak said it was very instructive. A strong union of workers should be formed to fight against the policy and establish the rights. How do you fight against the government policy alone? You have to team up to exercise your rights personally, but when the team gets stronger, you have to go to jail. Rights are not obtained without suffering. The government has imposed a representative of its choice on you. Tilak further says, seeing the situation in the country, we should also join this movement. I want to draw the attention of the working class in my country just like in the Western countries. In 1906 and 1907, I organized a massive anti-alcohol movement across Maharashtra to discourage the working class from becoming addicted to alcohol. But the movement was thwarted by the government. Mumbai belongs to the working people, who then would love to see the workers languishing in the misery. The newly established factories and mills in our country, which are in a state of industrial decline, have to compete with the factories which have the backing of the foreign monarchy. The struggle between the workers and the capitalists and the improper distribution of wealth must end. After that, Lokmanya Tilak passed away within a year and a half. This caused a lot of damage to the labor movement. In an article written by B.R. Suktantar in Maharashtra Times said, Tilak has done some more research on his love for workers. In it, Lokmanya Tilak had said they had to put aside caste, religion, etc. and unite. Make sure that the labor unions in England stand behind them. In fact, they have entrusted in him with the task of conveying the message to them. You will not get your demands as a gift from heaven. The hands given to you are not for work but for what? Work is not just physical work. God also helps those who help themselves in national work. You are the master of your future. In the future, workers will get a place of prestige and everyone should work towards that goal. Within a few years, the European American state became powerful. This work has been done by the workers. Also, why shouldn't it happen in Hindustan? A situation should arise where a person who wants to work will not go hungry without work. Opponents will try to mislead them by saying that they have no political rights, but you should not fall for it. This movement is not for the benefit of some senior class, but for the benefit of Bahujan Samaj. I come from the common people, want to work for a common man. I will die as a common man. I am a genuine Democrat. I consider it as an honor to be your spokesperson. Workers do not care which government is in power. They care that under the government they should be able to live a better life. If the government does not want workers to go after the politicians, then it must fulfill its duty to provide a better standard of living for them. A government that cannot provide a good living for its workers is not doing its duty. This principle is accepted by England and other Western countries, and this is the principle that the leading nations must accept in the case of their respective countries. A colleague of Lady Besant, B.T. Wadia, was working to unite the workers in Madras. A separate meeting of workers was organized the next day to felicitate Tilak on his initiative. The keynote address was delivered by Tilak after the award was presented by the Madras Labour Union. Lokmanya said, after he came back from England, the workers in Mumbai honoured him. While addressing them, he could speak in the language of the workers. That day, he felt very sorry that he wasn't able to speak their language, but their enthusiasm and their passion are as important to him as the Mumbai workers. So his thought on how mother tongue is important in development of the nation is reflected in today's education policy. Further, he mentioned as long as you run your movement legally, it cannot be said to be wrong. England gets £3 per hour, which is about 130 rupees per month. Here you don't even get 8 annas per day. If this situation is to be improved, the way to do that is to strengthen your organizations. Your ignorance, your disregard for your own interests does not improve the situation. If you unite, it will change. This honor given by the non-Brahmins and workers was a mark of honor for Lokmanya Tilak. Lokmanya and the working class had a special relationship. Before going to England for the Chirol trial on 24 February 1918, the workers of Mumbai had given him a citation to Lokmanya. At this meeting, he was also offered a bag of 1000 rupees for Swaraj Fund. The amount was too small, but its value was immense. 16,000 workers of Mumbai had collected this amount. At that time, 16 annas used to be 1 rupee. 2 lakh workers used to work in Mumbai's mills. Most of them were from Konkan. Workers came to Mumbai to avoid begging, due to which various addictions they had to return to Konkan. Tilak was the first Indian national leader to recognize the importance of workers and trade unions. That is why they considered the issue of workers as important as the issues of farmers. In Indian Labour League report, Message newspaper, Tilak also says in one place that indigenous industries are now in their infancy. At such a time, a movement that will create tension between employers and workers is a factor in the prosperity of this country. But workers need to be paid for their labor. Lokmanya Tilak was a visionary leader and he felt the need to unite people from all the walks of life and stand behind independence. Due to these views of Lokmanya Tilak in December 1916 at the Lucknow Congress Convention, people of all the caste, religion and classes came together and unanimously demanded Swaraj. The greatest achievement though was the favourable contract with the Labour Party and informing the English people who were the source of power of the British government about the plight and aspirations of the Indian people who were under their rule. Tilak addressed every meeting that he could and established good relation with the Labour Party. He was perhaps amongst the first few to recognize the mood in England was changing and the Labour Party was sympathetic to the cause of India. He therefore subscribed to its fund and gave a cheque of £2,000 which was gratefully acknowledged by it with an assurance that it would do everything in its power to enable India to obtain Swaraj. £2,000 which was gratefully acknowledged by it with an assurance that it would do everything in its power to enable India to obtain Swaraj. Tilak and his colleagues utilized the platform of the Labour Party to address the mass meetings of the workers from Glasgow, Edinburgh, Plymouth and the Southampton. All this is to make the readers of Kesari understand the role of Lokmanya Tilak in the field of labour and their problems. The communal strength of Mumbai's working class society, port workers, textile mill workers, employees, minor merchants and sellers, the informal division workers had formed in the city. Their participation in the independence movement was true and real, and for decades afterwards their narratives become oral stories of the movement in the blue-collar areas. I am sure this lecture would create awareness among the young generation of Lokmanya Tilak's views on various subjects to get to know some unknown facets of his personality. Thank you.